Welcome to another episode of Summit Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Batisto. Today's guest, we have Brock Zacherl. Zacherl was a four-time national qualifier for Clarion University, where he is now an assistant coach. We get into our conversation about wrestling philosophy, his coaching philosophy, his experiences both as a wrestler and as a coach at Clarion University. And we also talk about this app that he's been working on. He's currently in kind of the testing mode right now, but it has to do with weight, nutrition, and management. And I think we had a really good conversation. I think Brock would say that as well. It seemed like this whole hour went by super quick, which I think that means it was a good conversation. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel as well as our Spotify. And again, enjoy the show. You wrestled, I think it was Russell Rolfing. I don't know how many
Hated
times
wrestling him, dude. I hated it every time. Every time. He was like the first time I lost to him out of Vegas. I think it was my first time I went out to Vegas. I was like bummed because at the time he was like kind of under the radar. He wasn't like at the time it would have been a bad loss.
That was the match or that was, I think, the same tournament he wrestled Meredith and like he almost pinned him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he beats me early and I'm like, how did I lose to that kid? And then I was like, all right, well, the chances of me wrestling him again in my career, not high. Every single time we went to Vegas, I ended up wrestling him. And I ended up getting my 100th win against him too, which was like, I'm proud of because like, I was like, I hated wrestling this kid, hated it.
He's so scrappy. Like, so we were teammates at CSUB. I'm a year older than him. But I would get frustrated with him because he's so talented. He's got a gas tank, but he'd give up like the takedown, like the first takedown to almost everybody he wrestles.
Yeah. But I think I can't remember what match it was. It was like he had a really good gas tank too. And I remember I took him down and turned him like right into a turn. And I was like, all right, I'm winning this match. And then at some point I went, oh, it was the third period. It was my choice. And now that I coach, I'm like really disappointed in myself. It was my choice. And they're like, go neutral. And I was like, nah, I'm going to go down. Cause I knew he like, don't get turned and he can't beat you. And I did the whole typical high school thing where he just kind of like play the game on bottom. And he ended up getting like a lot of like stall calls. And by the end of it, I was like exhausted too. So like it ended up being like a horrible mistake. But at the time I was like, and then I got off the mat and my coach was like, what the hell are you doing? Don't ever do that again. I was like,
what was the score? Right. What was the score at the time? Do you remember?
It ended up getting really, really close. I think I had like a big lead, like 5-6 points. And I think I only beat him by like 1.
Did you ride him?
I must have. I had him in.
You gotta go neutral at that point. If you got riding time and you because if you get the takedown, now you have the major and you just ride him out.
Yeah, I don't know what was going on. That's what I was disappointed in myself, but got it done.
Yeah, it's like one of those things that you learn. Now that you're a coach, like it's one of those lessons that you learn because you did it wrong, and then now it's like, I mean, have you had that kind of situation with guys that you coach now where it's like, dude, no, you got to go down or neutral or whatever?
So much. It's so hard when you compete because like you're so narrow-minded. Like you're just totally focused on like winning and the results. And when you start coaching, you just everything opens up and you realize like the real picture. I think like competitors, they don't truly realize like what's important because they're so dialed in on like winning and losing and, the time, everything that they start to make bad decisions that like, in a vacuum, you're like, yeah, that's silly. I'd never do that. And I've definitely learned a lot from coaching and just observing other guys and thinking more about it too.
Yeah. I mean, I think as like a competitor too, sometimes you get kind of wrapped up in the moment. Right. You don't really see the big picture. Right. And that's why it's like, you just got to trust your coach, man. Like look in the corner, like they're going to tell you exactly what you need to hear. Yeah. And like, just focus on that.
Yeah. And that's what I needed too. And as I got older, I think my coaches trusted me too much. Like they're like, he knows he's going to be coach one day. Like he knows what he's doing. He knows how to win matches. And I'd look over and he's like, what do you think? And I feel like I would have liked it better if they just like go down or go neutral. I'm like, okay. Cause I was never like, so a lot of people don't know this. You probably wouldn't. So I grew up in Clarion. Like my family's been here my whole life. and the guy who's the head coach now at Clarion, who's been there since I got there.
Yeah,
Um,
Ferraro.
yeah, he
Yeah.
was my high school coach,
I
and
didn't know that.
yeah,
I knew you were from the area. I did some research. I didn't know he
yeah.
was your high school coach.
So the day I started wrestling, this my college coach has been my coach since day one. And the other guy on staff, one of the assistants at the time, Nick Deloy, same thing. Like these guys, they've known me through all of it. And, you know, they coached me, they taught me how to think and all that. But yeah, at some point as I got older, you know, I needed them to kind of rough me up a little more.
Dude, I think I just talked to McCade Ford yesterday, assistant for Wyoming.
Yeah,
And
nice.
what's
Yeah.
cool, like about like his situation, it's kind of similar to yours. Like not only did he, you know, now as like coaching Wyoming, but he wrestled for
Yeah.
Wyoming.
Yeah. It's
And you're like in
awesome.
the same boat
Yeah.
as Clarion. We were talking about it's like, you know, wrestling. It's like I feel like sometimes it's, you know, you don't want to make it personal,
Yeah.
right? But it's hard to not be personal when you care so much, and especially being like an alumnus, like
Yeah.
you care about Clarion wrestling, you know,
Oh,
like through and
too
through.
much. Yeah. Too much. Like, every time I get offered a job, I'm like, yeah, you know, you don't have the money to get me out of Clarion. Then, like, well, what do you get paid? And I was like, that's not what I mean. I know you can pay more. It's
Yeah.
just, I love it here. And it's like a town, you know, I don't know how much you looked into it, but it's like a town that would, for some people, it's pretty easy to hate, but it's just like, I'm a big mama's boy too. So like, I just love it here, man. I love the river. I love like, it's simple, it's slow, you know, everyone knows everyone, and just, you know, it gets tough, man. It's nice to have like a town around you that supports you.
So when you recruit guys, like one of the things that I think some kids like think like, oh, this fantasy, like I want to wrestle for this big school. And sometimes like, I mean, I know kids that I've coached, and then even guys that end up transferring back to CSUB that I've interacted with, they go off to this Big Ten school, they go to, you know, a big university, and it's not like what they expect. And they
No.
might be talent wise, like, yeah, very capable of wrestling in that room, but they kind of get lost in like, you know, how big the campus is, like how big the town is, you know, the kind of program that it is. But
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of kids that maybe have that fantasy when it's like in reality, it's like, well, what do you want it? Do you really think a big school is for you? Or do you kind of want like a small school?
Yeah. And
Um,
it's,
Go ahead.
I think too, like, I feel bad for a lot of those big school coaches. Cause like, you know, I get stressed out with my job, and you know, I've known my AD since I was 10 years old, you know, like we have such a great relationship. And, these guys at these big schools, they don't have that. I mean, we're talking every single year, they are like their job's on the line. You know, Tom Brands is crushing it, but his alumni, it's not good enough.
No,
And I think sometimes like, you know, obviously I think these coaches really care about their kids and everything, but like you're sometimes they're forced into bad decisions because they got to feed their family. And, you know, I think a lot of kids don't totally realize that how cutthroat it is at that level, because it has to be, because that guy's got to make a decision like, hey, you're going through a tough time right now, buddy. And I would really love to help you, but like, I got to feed my family and I got to get someone in the lineup now that can win right now. And, you know, sometimes that means transfer now with NIL stuff. Like it really, you know, it gets even easier for them to some extent. And, yeah, I think it creates like an unhealthy atmosphere that like, and we do really well with transfers for this reason. Cause
mm-hmm.
like they go to the big school and it's not really like, man, that's not what I was expecting. And, they come to Clarion and like, I can actually like care and love my guys like sons. And, the thing I found is they will fight for you so much, so hard
Yeah.
if you truly love them like a son, and you care about them, and you want what's best for them. And it's like a win-win, you know, because if I feel that way, I'm going to work as hard as I can to get you what you need, and they're going to do the same for me, and they'll see that. You know, kids are smart. They're going to, if it's fake and BS, same reason why they end up on the transfer portal. um, so I definitely, we see a lot of that, and luckily, you know, a lot of guys we scoop up and, you know, give them the kind of the environment that they were looking for.
Yeah, I like what you said. Like kids aren't dumb. Like they know exactly what's up. Like they can tell if they're just being used or if you like genuinely care about them.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of, I mean, my personal philosophy, it's like if you're a coach, like your job is making sure these kids develop as people, and
Yeah.
you want to do the best that you can to help them reach their goals. Like it
Yeah.
can't just always be about, well, we got to win straight up. You know,
Yep.
it's like you got to be process driven instead of always results based.
Yeah, and I'm sure you see this too because you coach at the high school level, right? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys had a state champ this year.
Yeah, Miguel. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. And like I'm sure what you found is like, hey, especially when you start talking about like consistency and stuff. If you turn them into like a good man and teach them how to think and treat people and approach the sport, they're going to start to be more consistent. And then you start having coaching conversations with them that aren't like, hey, I think should do this. Well, hey, what's important to you? What specific problems are you having? What is giving you the problem? And eventually then they end up on a different answer than what you had in your mind, but it's a really good spot to be in. And then they learn to coach themselves. And now all of a sudden you have a team full of 40 guys that are really great coaches and they're coaching themselves. You can start to really get a lot of value out of that. And because they're helping each other too. So, I feel like we're not quite there yet, but it's really a philosophy we're attacking. And, first they have to be good men. They have to be disciplined. And then you teach them how to coach themselves. I think you can get a lot done that way. And, as a coaching, you guys coach, and especially, you got a job too. It's hard for you to just be around 24/7 and family life on top of that. I think it's a really good approach and, becoming a good man, teaching them how to do that. It's not obvious.
No.
And reminding them it's, the rest will take care of itself.
Yeah, I think trying to find the right ways to teach them like lessons, because if it's
Mm-hmm.
just straight up like I'm coming at them hard,
Right.
like no, you're an idiot, you need to do this. Like sometimes they'll listen, sometimes they won't.
Yeah,
But
no,
like for
you're an
me, it's
idiot.
yeah, I know. It's like or they're like, yeah, you're right. But it's
Yeah.
not really until whether it's like a technique or a position where it's like we told you need to work on this, and then they don't, and they end up getting to a big match and like it doesn't go the way that they want precisely for that reason, then it's like, hey, you were right. And it's like, I know, but it's like they don't really learn that lesson until they mess
No,
up.
no. And I was that way too. I know. And like I told you, my coaches, I had like they were my best friends. Like they were like father figures to me. Like, and even them, like when they would come at me and say, "Hey, dude, you need to fix this with your high C, or you need to be, faking more, doing whatever." There was be a lot of times where I'm like, "Yeah, you're right," but there'd be times where I would be really defensive, and I'd be like, "No, I'm telling you, I'm good," and or like, "Hey, this option's better because for whatever reason," and then I lose a match or I get scored on or whatever the reason is, and I have to reinvestigate, and I'm like, crap, he's right. And you're just talking about that today, actually, and I'm like, man, yeah, that happened to me all the time. With Coach Deloy, he's on staff at Clarion. He's like, he never wrestled in college, but I'm telling you, he's like the technical wizard. He's so he's the best I've ever seen at like molding, like building off your style,
Yeah.
and he's the best I've ever seen at like identifying the little problems that are going to go a long way. So he was obviously on my back a lot, and he was always right, even if I fought him.
I mean, that's something too that I think is worth talking about. It's like, sometimes if you don't have that accolades, like, I mean, I know guys that have won, Olympic medals or have won, multiple national titles that might not necessarily translate into being a
Yeah,
good coach.
yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that's
You
something
too?
that, yeah. So I
Yeah.
teach. Yeah. That's how I ended up getting pulled into Bakersfield. I'm from the beach originally.
Oh,
So
good. Yeah.
yeah, so I lived in like a small beach town throughout high school. And then, yeah, I went to
Yeah.
Bakersfield,
Wow.
and then they were like, dude, we'll get you a teaching job if you stay. I
Yeah.
already knew I wanted to be a coach, but
Yeah.
um, yeah, so if you don't quite have those accolades, sometimes it's like you get maybe overlooked, even though
Yeah.
you might be right, just because, well,
Right.
you're not, you're not a college wrestler, you're not a Division I wrestler, or you weren't, an All-American or whatever.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that you're wrong. And I think the real ones know that. It's
Right.
just sometimes parents or people that don't know about that,
Yeah.
they kind of overlook it because of, your lack of accolades or whatever.
Right. I definitely see it probably the most in parents. And I think as a lot of like, um, I think it's kind of an old school mentality. And it stinks with wrestling because, like, every other sport in the world has caught on to this fact that, like, hey, a good football player doesn't mean I'm a good coach. Bill Belichick never even played college football, and he's the
Yeah.
best ever, arguably. And or maybe not even. I mean, he's really good.
Yeah.
Just in my opinion, and I think why I asked of your teacher, it's like a totally different skill set. Like you have to understand the sport, and a lot of like the great people understand what they were good at, and we're ahead of the game, whatever. But the overall arching sport, they don't have that deep understanding for. And then on top of that, they have to be a good communicator, because, you come at the kid and say, hey, you need to do this, this, and this. He might not be receptive. And if you can't break through to the kids to get them where they're actually listening to you, you can't, you're worthless. And no matter how much you know. So, and then there's a lot more on top of that. But I think those are the two big things. You got to be a good communicator, and you have to understand what's important in the sport. And I think, that has obviously nothing to do with accolades. And this is very personal to me, because like the best coach I ever had was Nick DeLoya, who, never wrestled in college. And I think it's hard for him sometimes in this sport. And, there's no doubt in my mind that he is the best. And I just wish wrestling would come around and start to understand that.
I mean, we'll see, like, I think, I'm trying to remember. I know, like with like Brian Smith, when he first took over Mizzou, it was kind of like, it's really like he was never a national champ. Like, if you go there, like, you'll never be this. And it's just like, he's been there for a long time, like over 15 years or something. Yeah. And it's like, dude, every year just getting a little bit better. A little bit better.
Yeah. And it was not a good program either.
No.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, that's a great example. I'm actually going to start using him as ammo next time I have this conversation.
Well, what's cool too, especially with wrestling now, like, dude, everything's online. Like, if you want to be a good coach, you just go online and you just pay who are the best, coaches, and you just try to look what they're doing and investigate. It's the same thing with wrestling.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah, I think when I was in high school, I was like the only state qualifier from like my whole county for like the 2 years that I went. And I, pretty much learned how to wrestle. Either had to drive 45 minutes, right, to wrestle with, a club that had some good partners, or I had to go online on YouTube or Flow Wrestling.
Figure it out.
Dude, like back in the day when they didn't have that, it's like you had like Competitor Supreme. It was like, that's how you learned how to wrestle.
Yeah. The good old days.
Yeah, I don't know. One of the things that like I kind of struggled with, and maybe it's just I make an excuse sometimes. It's like my body type. Like, I can lose weight pretty quick, but always like the nutrition element is something I always struggled with, and a lot of our high school kids struggle with it too, just because of like the discipline it takes and exactly like knowing what to eat. It's a lot of it's like trial and error. So one of the things that we started doing is, we don't necessarily go out and say, hey, you need to do this, but if you're kind of getting some weight down, we always recommend like, here's the nutritionist. But I saw on Twitter, you're developing an app, right? Where it's like a nutrition. I mean, how would you describe it? And I guess, how's that going?
Yeah, it's going great. It's like, it works. What I'm doing right now is I'm having our guys kind of test it. Cause like, but so here's what it does. You type in all your information, hey, my name is my age, your height, your weight, and then you type in your weight goal. And I made it just for like, obvious reasons, very specific to the NCAA weight loss rules. So, I think your options are 0.5% of your body weight a week, 1% or 1.5%. And then there's also a gain weight option too, in the same direction and the same amount. So
that's tight.
Yeah, it'd be cool, because we actually have two guys that are trying to go up like a few weight classes. And I was like, this would be helpful for them, because like there is healthier ways to be gaining weight as well. So and then working out and everything. And then there's a maintain weight option too. So I picture it, guys get down to weight, and then this helps them do that, and then it helps them keep their weight during the season as well. So you type in all your stuff, you hit generate, it spits out a 1-day meal plan. Eventually I'm going to get to the point where it spits out like a few options, just because for people's sanity, they can have a little more going on. And then it generates a shopping list based on everything that's in there. And it's great. And I where I'm at right now is I'm sending it out, and I'm like just testing it myself to see, like, because I'm seeing a lot of obvious things like, I should change this to here and the layout and stuff. So I'm pretty good at like making stuff work, but I'm not very creative in a sense, like it's not super pretty. So my plan is to get it out there, and if people really like it, and it's making me a solid bit of money, I'll be like, okay, well, I'll figure out how to make it pretty now. And then because that's the easy part. Making it pretty really is easy. It's just I'm all self-taught, so like it's not that interesting to me. So I haven't put all that time into learning that, but it's been a lot of fun. And Um, a lot better than playing video games. So I've been having fun, as
I
this is my
mean,
side project.
like I'm a functional guy. Like, okay, like when people get me gifts or anything like that, it's like, okay, well, can I actually use it? You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, I don't need it to look pretty, but it's
Yeah.
like, dude, I think that's cool that, was it something that you were like, all right, there's kind of a market for this, or this is something that I know is going to help our guys out. So I like, what was the inspiration, I guess, behind it?
Yeah. So I can tell you personally, like, so I was a 41 pounder, and like, I just was so bad at cutting weight. And a lot of it was like a lot of cutting weight, like when you use it'll be like there'll be interesting things that pops out, like, oh, that's, that would be a good meal. I hadn't thought of that. But like a lot of it, when you look at it, it's like, yeah, I could, eventually came up with that myself. But like, it's the discipline part. And that's always what I struggle with. I knew what I needed to do. I knew, how to do it. It's just I wasn't disciplined enough to do it. And then so I was wrestling 41, cutting weight like an idiot, and eventually, like, I would get up to like 170 in the summers, like just be a
Oh, dang.
hog. And then, I thought I was cutting all this weight, and this and that. And then I said, I'm going up to 149 now because I'm not doing this anymore. And the funny part was, like, I went up to 149, and like to this day I weigh like 152. Like, it was all mental for me. And then so I still compete now, like go to the US Open and stuff. And what has worked for me is I had a meal plan, from I ripped it off like an MMA dietitian guy, and I just followed it to a T and adjusted a little bit of the portion sizes and stuff because he was, would be working with people a little different size. Um, and it worked so great. I made 143 where I never missed a meal. I never cut water. And I ate like 4,000 calories and half a gallon of water the day before weigh-ins. It was great. And I was like, wow, I just need a list and it's something to tell me what to do. And there's the discipline part that I was missing. So I thought, hey, this is something I could build. And I think it's something, that might help some people.
You said 4,000 calories the
Dude,
day
a ton.
before?
Yeah, it was like my I don't know what was going on, because there was a stint where I was not eating enough for a long time. I started to feel crazy, and like I'd be working out and I just would be like, I feel like I'm gonna pass out. And then
Yeah.
I talked to one of our guys. Nutrition and fitness is a really big major for us, and one of our guys, he's really really sharp. He's actually interning with the Steelers right now, doing
Nice.
nutrition and stuff. Yeah, he's awesome. And he's like, well, what are you eating? And I told him, he's like, dude, that's not even close to how many calories you should be eating. I'm like, oh, really? He's like, yeah, try adding like these supplement bars to just, keep the calorie count up, but not, freak you out because you're gaining weight. Well, when I did that, like I lost like 5 pounds immediately. And then like I couldn't get above weight again. So like I was like underweight, and then I'd just be like eating and eating and eating, and I'd stay like underweight. It was crazy.
That seems so backwards.
I know. And that's why I was like, man, dude, imagine if I could have figured this out, like whenever I was a 41 pounder, like what that could have done for me. So, who
Yeah.
knows?
I get frustrated with our guys where I mean this didn't happen so much this last year, but the year before, like we had guys where it's like, dude, like eat food, and like if
Yeah,
you need to go
right.
get another workout. Like
That's how
what's
I was.
your
I was a sitter.
yeah, like we call it like worrying the weight away. It's like you're
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
point it over. I'm
That's
just
a
gonna
good way
sit here
for
in
it.
my room and just like, just have anxiety, and it's like, dude, just eat a little bit, be a pound and a half,
Totally.
and then just go get a little spar in. Or I'm
Yeah.
not big on running because I feel like it's
That's how
it's hard on
I
your
hate it.
knees, and
Yeah. I
yeah.
hate it. That's dude. And I tell you, it even more so, like it makes you go crazy when you're just like thinking like that, where like, sitting on my weight, or, worrying the weight away. You go nuts, man. And it's not good for you. You be healthy, and then, go wrestle and lose the weight. And, wrestling's a long season too. So like, if you decide to do it like that, it's going to make it so much longer. So I'm glad, I'm happy to see that you're a guy that's like, hey, dude, go eat. We'll figure that problem out, because I've been there, and it's it's not good.
Well, I was more the opposite. Like I'm less like that with like teaching and like coaching stuff, but like for when I was in high school, when I was in college, if there was anything like personal, like schoolwork or like getting my weight down or anything like that, big time procrastinator.
Yeah.
Like I would like wait till like the last
Yeah.
minute, and I would like,
Yep.
all right, well, I'm 5 over like the night before. Well, I can,
Yeah.
eat this much and
Yeah.
get to like 6, and then I'll wake up at like 5, and then I'll have like an hour and a half to lose it, and then we'll travel. Like it's just, dude, I don't need to wait to the end,
Yeah.
And it's like on the one hand, I want to be strong enough so I can still train and like feel good, but on the other hand, it's like it doesn't matter how easy you can lose it. It's still hard on your body, and
Yeah. So
especially when you're training for 5, 6+ months of doing that. Yeah, at
hmm
some point it's either going to affect you, like, your shoulder, your knee's going to get injured, or you're going to get sick, or whatever it is. And I think guys don't really realize the longevity, like how poor that, like how poor of a way of doing that is.
Yeah, no, that's a great point about, them getting hurt and everything like that. And that's one of the reasons why, as I started building this thing, the maintain option was like one of the most appealing parts to me, because a lot of people seem to say like, oh, once I get my weight down, I'm good. That was not me. I was like the opposite. Like if I could make weight for one event, I'll crush it. I'll do really well. But the season, man, I was just, not disciplined with it. And something like that would have went a long way for me. And um, you're right. Would prevent a lot of injuries. And I hadn't even thought of that. I think that's a really great point.
So when you have the maintain option on the app, like, is it something to where, all right, you have to come in the week like a certain pound, like over like 6 pounds over or something, if you're weighing in at a certain time? Like, how does that exactly work?
That's a good question. So how it works is like, if it'll give you a meal plan that's designed to, we'll start from the beginning, to get
Yeah.
you down to weight, to lose X percent, per week. And then you follow that. And when you're down to weight, theoretically, this will keep you right there. Right. So it'll just, the meal plan will then adjust to a calorie level that, in one of the other inputs that is worth noting is like how often you work out too.
Mhm.
So, if you work out 2 hours a day, you can put that in there and it adjusts, and it can adjust as you change too. So like, because it's not free for me so I use artificial intelligence to kind of generate it, which is great.
Yeah.
And but it's not free. So like I can't have people like spamming that button, otherwise I keep getting charged. And it's not like a super amount of money, but it's enough to where like, yeah, I can't just have people rapid fire. But I think it'll be a good option for people, to just try new things. And there's going to be an option to save the ones that you like and go back and use them. And if you're to the point where like, hey, I do need to lose weight again, you can just switch it up and try something else.
That's tight. Do you have like a timeline of when like this is going to become available to other people?
I think I could. What's crazy is like I don't have any experience. I can like build basically whatever you want, but the one thing I got to learn is like I don't know how to make like membership options. I've never done it before. And that can't be that hard. But I'm gonna play with that. I'm gonna have our team mess with it and just make sure it functions right. And I want to get their feedback, because like I have a feeling there's gonna be something obvious once I start using it that I want to fix or adjust how I do things. Because
Yeah.
there's a substitute option and stuff like that, and just get an idea of like, what's the best. Because like the one thing, you spit out a 1-day meal plan and then you have a grocery list for a week. Is that how they're going to want it? Or are they going to want something different every day? I'm not sure, but I'll figure that out once I start using it. The main hiccup and the reason why it's hard for me to do a timeline is because like, I'm totally like in my free time. So what I
Yeah.
normally do is, I'll wake up at like 4 a.m. and I'll just work on this kind of stuff until the baby wakes up and my wife wakes up. Then I hang out with them and go to work. And once I come back, I need to get better at it, but I try to be totally family oriented when I come home. So, but there's days where I wake that 4 o'clock a.m. alarm goes off and I'm like, leaving. So it's hard to tell, but it should be soon because it does work. And like the adjustments that I need to make are not significant. At some point I want to tackle, making it look a lot prettier, but it works well. And it looks good enough that like, people will be surprised that a wrestling coach made it.
No, I mean, it's kind of like like I said, like some, nutritionists are I think available for a lot of like bigger colleges and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And for high school, it's like if you kind of know somebody that knows what they're doing, or like I said, we reference that one person usually to our guys. But dude, like there's definitely a market for an app like that. Like
Oh yeah.
I haven't even seen anything other than what you were talking about on
Yeah.
Twitter and just now. Um, is this something that you've kind of just done pretty much on your own, and then you're just using the guys to kind of test it, or did you get any help,
Yeah,
like
I
just
did
getting
it
it going?
all myself. College athletics, it's like really competitive. And
Yeah,
at some point I'm like, well, man, what if I got fired? Like, what would I do? Because like I told you, I love this area. So like, yeah, I could go coach somewhere else, but that's not really that appealing to me. Unless my mom would pick up her stuff and move. I want to stay here. So I was like, well, what would be a good fallback option that I wouldn't have to move? Because I graduated with my MBA.
yeah,
So like I wanted to do a big fancy business job, I'd have to move. And, a lot of those are like experience related. So eventually my finance professor in school was like, hey, learn to code, learn to code, learn to code. And I just remembered that. I'm like, oh yeah, I could be building experience by building cool stuff and maybe even making some money, hey, buy my coffee if you think this is cool kind of thing. And yeah, so I'll be learning a really valuable skill. I'll be getting the experience that I need if I ever get canned for whatever reason. And eventually ended up on building iOS apps. I don't like totally love committing myself fully to Apple stuff, but
yeah,
I am a one-man show. So, and I have a couple projects in mind. So I'm going to get this one done. I want to build like a fantasy wrestling app.
yeah,
And then I want to start getting into more web development stuff. Like I think again, problems that like wrestling people face is like, and maybe I think high school coaches could relate too. Like, guys love social media nowadays, and I can do some like simple photo editing stuff, but like
hmm,
I think a jobs board for like sports groups, small colleges, small high school things, something like that, where they can go and hire someone for $5 to make a cool. Hey, my kid just won states. I'm gonna get him a cool edit, or something like that.
yeah.
Commit stuff and anything, it's maybe even dietitians, hey, here's this person. She works with a lot of wrestlers. If you pay her $50, she'll meet with you about whatever. So a lot of like long-term plans there, but I'll just be hacking away at them as I get free time.
Yeah, like I like everything you just talked about. Like I think one of the things that I'm trying to do with like my podcast is like I kind of don't want to just be like a podcast. Like I want to make it a website where, like all these different college coaches that maybe that I interact with or people that I know, like they can just post a blog. Like parents have questions, from maybe
Right.
it's your first tournament. What do I need to bring to my first tournament?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or like,
Great point.
what are some good high school tournaments to go to? Like, how do I need to train? Like, what does my diet need to be? What are some tips for like recruiting and like get myself out there?
Yeah.
Like marketing yourself on social media, like all that stuff. Like, I just kind of want to make it like a one-stop shop just for even free, like just making sure people have everything that they need to be great. Where as a high school coach, like I'm trying to build up our club as well as our high school. I don't want our kids to feel like they have to go travel anywhere else other than where we're at right now to get what they need
Yes.
to get what to do what they want to do.
Yeah, that really resonates with me because like I grew up in a small town, and I loved it here. But like my whole entire life, people would come up to me and say, "Well, dude, if you want to win a state title, you need to move to, this school or go to this prep school. Hey, if you want to win a national title, dude, you got to leave Clarion. You got to go to if you want to be an All-American." And I'm like, no, that's just not
That's
true.
the wrong mentality, man.
Yeah, and I always was like, these people are weak.
Yeah.
They always think that the grass is greener on the other side. And I think people just nowadays, they don't like to be accountable. So like I was never national champ, but it wasn't because of Clarion. It was because of mistakes that I made. And I've learned a lot from them. And a lot of people don't like to admit, hey, I messed up. I could have done better. And it's easier for people, I think, naturally to say, well, yeah, I didn't have what I needed. If I went to Penn State, man, I would have won 4 national titles. Like, no, you wouldn't have. You have to hold yourself accountable. And I think kids more than ever nowadays, that's hard for them because it's just everywhere. It's just so easy to have an excuse.
Yeah, I think you know, not too many people know this, but I almost took well, I didn't say almost, but I was thinking about taking another coaching job where it's like everything that I would need would pretty much just be handed to me,
Yep.
right? It's like,
Yep.
well, they got middle school and elementary wrestling feeding directly into high school. Like they
Uh,
have like all these like club programs, like
yeah.
the, administration and the AD are like actively trying to, push the program to win like a state title or team title or whatever it is. And at that same time, like all these people were talking like, you'll never win a state title, team title at Frontier. Like, you'll never do this. Like, all these things aren't going to happen. You're not going to get a new wrestling room, all that stuff. And it just kind of called to my soul, dude. It's like, you know what? Like that might be the easy way. Like that might be the quick path to success, but like, that's not who I am. It's like,
Yeah.
I want to win and I want to win the right way.
Yeah.
And I don't
Right.
want to take any
Exactly.
shortcuts to get there.
And your guys will see that. Like they
Yeah.
will see that, and they will follow and fight for you like no one else. And like even if you fail, to me, that's worth so much more. Like showing a bunch of guys that like, hey, we're chasing this goal, and to do it, we're going to make these sacrifices. Like basically, I'm going to become a good man as a result of it. I will always be proud of that. And that's kind of like my same mission that you're trying to do is here is like, I was a little kid here once and people were telling me these things. It's still happening here. And
Yeah.
I just want these guys to know, like, you don't got to leave, man. We got everything you need. You got good people around you who love you. The rest will take care of itself. Like when you love something and you're willing to attack it, you will find the way. You will ask the right questions. It'll take care of itself.
I think one of the things though that I struggle with is, yeah, I'm passionate about all these different things, but I asked my girlfriend not too long ago to marry me. So we're
Oh,
engaged
congrats.
and
That's
like,
great. That's
yeah,
awesome.
I'm pretty excited, but it's like, I always try to make sure, and it's been hard this week, especially, but, just because I get busy, with all these different side projects, and she totally supports that. But it's like, I don't want to betray that. And like, all right, well, I'm going to be up until this time working on something where it's like,
Yeah.
we still got to have like our time,
Yeah.
like, and I feel like everyone that I've talked to about it, like they all don't quite have the answer. And I don't think there is a perfect answer,
No.
but I mean, do you have any like, tips or ideas on how to kind of have that work-life coaching balance?
Yeah. Great question. This one that I thought a lot about. There's a guy, Naval Ravikant. He's great. I don't know if you've heard him. He's on Joe Rogan, like
Mm-hmm.
a really great Joe Rogan. If you get bored, Naval.
Okay.
Um, and he says, a calm mind, a fit body, and a house full of love can't be bought. They must be earned. And I haven't been the best at it at all times. You're young, and you jump in this whole life thing, and you get married. And then once you realize who the boss is, you start to do a little bit better. And,
Yeah.
right where I'm at now is just like, as a wrestling coach and someone, I think it's probably like an athlete problem, but even more so wrestlers, because we're just so passionate and hardworking and just want to help people. You just like run off in another direction. And the reason that quote means a lot to me is like, hey, you need to show your wife, your family that you love them, that you care about them. You got to work on it. Same way, you got to go drill your single leg. You have to work on your family.
Yeah.
And when I started to think more like that, because everyone loves their family, it's just like, sometimes you maybe take it for granted. I don't know the right word for it, but
Well, you gotta show it. Like it's
yeah,
not just like
right,
telling somebody I
right.
love you and maybe you mean it, but it's
Yeah,
like you kind of have to work hard, like you said, like work hard at it too, like
yeah.
earn it.
It's hard for me because I'm like a passionate guy, but I'm not super, I don't even know the right word. Like for a woman, it'd be easy for them to misinterpret. Like I'm not super lovey in that kind of way. Like,
Like
and I,
their love language is physical touch,
yeah, so it's
Yeah.
not like totally, it doesn't totally like make sense to me. So I don't think that way. But what really an action plan, that I think people could do is just like, hey, I have my schedule. I kind of explained it to you guys. I wake up early in the morning before everyone else and I work on my side stuff. Um, the second they wake up, I do my best. It's hard for me because I get to work on something. It's hard to stop. I try to have breakfast with them and talk about, whatever, hang out with them, go to work, and I'm all in on work stuff, never worrying about my side projects. Don't touch them. Do my best not to deal with anything. I get home, crickets, done.
Yeah.
And it gets hard with recruiting. And, as a coach, like crazy things happen. Kids call you because, whatever reason. And so that's my guys. It was hard for me to take that jump and like really kind of, set those kind of boundaries with my coaching staff and my guys. But not one of them was like, hey, you're not working hard enough, or even question it at all. It was all, they all respected it. And they know like, hey, if you need him, you got to call him once he gets
Yeah.
home from practice. And I like it that way, because if it's an emergency, they call me. If it's not, they text me, and I deal with it at 4 a.m. when I get up. So I guess that would be my advice. Be all in, be totally present when they're there. Know that you have to work on it. It's not just going to take care of itself. And schedule it. Schedule,
Yeah.
this is when I'm focusing on my family.
Yeah, somebody was telling me like when you go home, like and somebody texts you, like read the situation. Like if it's an emergency, all right,
Yeah.
yeah, you need to deal with it. But if it's like maybe a big deal for them, but like you take a step back and it's like I left my wrestling shoes, in the wrestling room and I need them. And it's like,
Mhm.
hey, I'll get a hold of you in the morning. Like we'll figure it out. Like
Yep.
I don't need to answer that right now,
Right.
you know?
And they
But
respect it.
yeah,
You're trying to make them good men. Like, you have to, that family dynamic is what we're put, like, that's what men are here for, to protect the family. And when you tell them like, hey, sorry I didn't get to you, that's my family time. You do that one time with one of your guys, or explain it at a team meeting, they respect it. They're like, wow, I want to be like him one day. That's great. He cares about your family. And you get out in public, and they see like how happy everyone is. It's like contagious.
I didn't even think about that, like being an example in that way.
Yeah.
It's like being an example on how you treat like your spouse or like how you
Yeah.
treat your parents or whoever.
Yeah. Your
I
girlfriend.
always, yeah, I always talk about it. Like, make sure you go tell whoever gave you a ride, like, hey, thank you for giving me a ride or like something
Yeah.
like that. But I guess I didn't even realize like, dude, they're watching how I interact
Everything.
with my fiance,
Yeah.
how I interact.
Everything.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
What are you guys working on right now in the room? Like, you don't have to tell me if you guys are working on secret stuff. You don't need to tell me, but like, what's your like summer training schedule like? And, how do you guys kind of work on what you need to work on throughout the summer?
Well, so I'll give you the boring answer, and I'll give you the good answer. We do
Okay.
things a little flip flop. Like, a lot of teams will have their team back already working, doing summer classes, doing stuff. We don't bug our guys all summer long. We let them do our thing. And then we keep them a little longer. Like, we do a little freestyle circuit with the whole team, and we'll take everyone to U23s. So there's not really too much going on right now, but I'll tell you from a coaching perspective, like some interesting things I'm excited about is we're really working on a couple philosophies. So like Google does this where I forget what they call it, but basically 20% of your work time, you get to work on whatever you want, right? That has to do with something in the company. And it's it's like 50% of their revenue generating products or a result of that 20% time. And it's just incredible to me that you just give these guys freedom, and they're going to solve a lot of difficult problems and create cool stuff. So we're working on a way to kind of implement that with our guys, because there's obviously stuff we want to work on development wise. But say a guy that goes to a tournament and it's like, hey, crackdown was like a common theme there, or finishing your single leg. By the end of the week, I don't care how you do it, you need to be very confident in your single leg. You can take anyone down and see where they come up. And one of the things, you're there to answer all their questions. You're there to, hey, this guy on this team, he's really great in a single leg. Why don't you talk to him about it a little bit? And, to help supplement that,
Mhm.
we are doing, we're making like a lot of technique videos in all of the wrestling positions. So you might have seen me post it. I asked the wrestling world, like, hey, what are the most common wrestling positions, just to kind of help me make sure I wasn't forgetting anything. And I'm
Yeah.
embarrassed to admit it. Like, one of the obvious ones I forgot, I didn't have front headlock on there. I'm like, oh my
Oh,
God,
dude.
I need to be fired. But yeah, we're kind of chipping away at that. And the reason I'm so excited about it is it's going to give guys like a lot of ambition, a lot of like passion towards fixing a goal that they want to fix, how they want to fix it, and all the resources to do it. So, we're going to have 40 guys in our room working on 40 different things. And that's really exciting to me, because we've all been in a wrestling practice where like you're working on something that, might not make sense for you. And you know how that feels. I don't need to describe that. And to
Yeah,
kind of
it
avoid
gets
that,
boring.
yeah, and
Yeah.
teach them that love it and have fun. I think it's a great way to just help guys fall in love with the sport again. It's a little different. I don't know if you could get away with it in high school, but in college athletics, like everyone I work with, they're all fully capable of doing it, and they know, like, they're my peer. I don't think a lot of coaches would like to admit that, but like these guys know a lot of wrestling, And I approach it that way. Like they come and ask me questions and I'm asking them right back to see what we come up with. And, just not assuming I know better. So that's something that our training is going to change a lot this next coming year. And I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I think like there's a couple of things you talked about. Like I think definitely giving the guys freedom, right, to kind of find their own way to an extent, and just making sure you're there to kind of help them out.
Yep.
Kind of point them in the right direction. I think maybe like certain positions, like bottom, you can maybe get more systematic, and top, like
Yep.
there's some choice there as long as you're kind of following those fundamentals.
Yeah.
And then on your feet, again with the fundamentals, but there's so many different attacks, there's so
Right.
many different setups.
Yeah.
It's just trying to find like trying to while also developing their fundamentals still, because they're still in high school, and like
Right.
they haven't been wrestling as long as guys that are in college, but then also still trying to give them that freedom where they can actually
Mm-hmm.
go and work on things that maybe are unique to their what they do naturally, or what their body type is, or whatever. um,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
because I think ultimately it's like, dude, as much as this is like a fight and it's a martial art and it's a game, like it's also for me like some of these wrestling styles are a reflection of who they are,
Right. Yeah,
you know.
absolutely.
So
Yeah,
it's like,
absolutely.
yeah, I want them to be able to express themselves, and
Yeah.
learn how to do that.
And they have so much fun that way. Like that, and that's what makes people really great. The weird styles, you get remembered for that. And, you have a weird thing that works well, people are not going to know how to deal with it. And it's
Yeah.
something that you enjoy. It's just, I look at it this way. Like we talk a lot about like love in our program. And like, to me, it's like the number one thing. Like if I love my guys, I will figure out how to make them the best version of themselves. If I really do, if they love wrestling, they are going to figure out how to be the best wrestler they can be. And I think little projects like this and approaching it like that is great. And I think what you mentioned too is like it is important to develop them too. And I don't know how you guys do things, but I'd be curious how you feel on this. That's what we try to do. We like teach all preseason, and it's a little opposite because most teams are like killing their guys. We don't really do that either. That's where we're doing most of our teaching. And our plan is to kind of get through all the teaching through the preseason stuff. And we'll do like hard workouts on the weekend, something, preseason-y, but not like other schools. And then once the season starts, we plan to kind of take it into this project. We also call it the flipped classroom kind of thing too, because uh, Harvard did a bunch of studies on this. Is how I found it, the idea that started everything. And it's basically like you send the lecture to the student, and then in the classroom they're going to work on the homework, and you're there to ask. They can ask questions, they can do with it. And I think in wrestling or with athletes in general, I think it's a good way to be more productive and to have people doing different things, which is what my goal is.
Yeah, dude. And now I'm just thinking like I can not just use that in the wrestling room, I can use that in the classroom too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had a teacher in college who I struggled in this class, but he would send the lecture ahead of time, like a couple hours before the class starts, and I would actually, so I got behind because I tried to scheme the system and just not go, and then I ended up not doing well in the midterm, and I went from
Yeah.
having like a D to like a B plus or something like that in the class. But I did that because I would look at the lecture, and then when we got to the class, I would sit in the front because I knew I had to go now. Like I'm down. Like I need to step it up. But I already had like questions earmarked. So when he got to that point in the slideshow, I raised my hand, asked a question.
Yeah.
And I think
That's
like
right.
doing that for guys, like for one, it gets them maybe more buy-in,
Yeah.
and they kind of know it to expect in a certain extent, and like they
Yeah.
can already kind of visualize, right, this is how the practice might kind of go when we get to this point. Like I know, all right, this is something that I know I need to work on, and I already have a question kind of ready,
Right.
instead of
Right.
you're kind of introducing the content or the skill or whatever that you're doing, and now it's like I'm kind of just doing it,
Yeah.
opposed to, well, I can kind of be more premeditated when we work
Right.
on this position.
Yeah. And I think it helps them learn a little bit better too. Cause like whenever I watch technique and I'm like, oh, I'm going to try that. You go out to do it the first time, you're like, whoa, that's not at all how I thought it feels. So you watch it again and you kind of like are wrestling with how to figure this out. And then you start asking better questions. And like when, when I teach anything in the room, I like teach them start to finish, like how to do it right. So then they go out and they do it right. And then they kind of take it for granted, like, oh, I know how to do this. But then when you ask them 2 days later, hey, let's hit this move, you can find 5 things that it's wrong with it. And I think, letting them kind of tussle with it, let them wrestle with it and ask good questions and figure it out. I think they'll ingrain that a lot better.
Yeah.
We'll
And
see.
then,
I'm very excited for it. I think the guys I'm very like, I get a lot of feedback from our guys, because like we've kind of talked about, like if they're not on board, you're just going to be punching a brick wall. Like they're not going to, doesn't matter if I'm teaching good things or not, they're not listening. So they seem really excited about it. And hopefully it goes well, but I got a lot of work to do. We got to start getting these videos done, and I've been dragging my feet a little bit.
wait, so you do it? You do like videos and then put them out?
Yeah. So here's the kind of layout I'm using right now. I hope that it's good because I do not want to redo this project. But what we're gonna do is have like a tiny clip of teaching it. Then we're gonna have a clip or two of like the highest level guys that we can find doing whatever it is we're talking about. And then we'll have a clip of a guy on our team doing it. And then, the last part will be like, hey, if you like this, go watch more of this guy, go watch more of this guy, and giving them like homework in a way.
What are
So
you using to kind of piece everything together? Like, are you using like Adobe Premiere? Like,
yeah, that's what I
yeah,
use. We get it through the school.
nice.
So
Well,
yeah.
I don't know if I should say this, but my buddy, he worked for Flow and then he worked for the
Nice.
Padres, San Diego Padres. But he would use Adobe Premiere for like all the editing and like that's what he does for his job right now. He told
Wow.
me this: you don't like if you do the student or the teacher like option, it's way cheaper, and
Yeah.
they don't actually check, like they don't
I do that
verify
for
it.
everything. Anytime it says teacher or education or whatever, I
Well, you
plug
are in education
yeah,
though.
I plug my college email in, and and it works every time.
Yeah, but I guess anybody can do that. Like, you don't need to
Yeah.
be in education. I don't want to say that, and then
Yeah.
now like, but
Yeah.
I mean, either way, I'm
They're gonna
still
take the
good.
podcast down. They're gonna come after me.
But dude, Adobe Premiere, like, I actually had to sit down with my buddy. I'm like, you gotta tell me like, what are some like tips and tricks? Like, I'm looking at it, and
Dude, it looks
thankfully,
like a
like,
spaceship. There's so much going on.
well, it's like he described it. It's like a canvas, right? So if I just like give you a blank canvas and I give you like everything in the world that you could paint with, and I'm like, all right, make a
Yeah.
picture. It's like
Yeah. That's exactly what it is.
I
Yeah.
know a pencil, like I
Yeah.
can maybe try to draw something, but
Yeah.
dude, it's nuts. Like, is that something that you personally like use a lot?
I use it a lot because again, like we have for our whole entire sports department, like every single program, we have two guys that do everything. And like we're talking everything from like databases to our websites, like they're way overworked. And so I took it upon myself to like try to figure out how to use Photoshop and Adobe Pro. And I'm by no means like a professional, and I'm not very creative either, but I'm really good at copying. So like if I see a cool video, I'm like, oh, that's awesome. I'll make a Clarion version of that. I can usually figure it out. And I don't do it enough to where like I'll forget a lot. So like I'll figure out how. I have this one video I just finished up, and it was like, 49 All-Americans, 8 national champs. And I put, who's, and it's got like cool like dots. It's like a very animated and logo-y.
Yeah.
And it says continue the tradition, but we want to change it to do like a marketing thing of like who's 50, our 50th All-American. And I started messing with them. I'm like, this should be way easier than it is. I can't figure it out. So I got to like clean off my slate and try to figure out how to add the text the way that I want it with the animation I want. So it's like a constant learning thing, but especially with Photoshop, I've gotten a lot better to where like, again, it's like, it's not like perfect. And if you really look at it, you'll be like, there's some things wrong, but it's good enough that it'll pass the test, and you wouldn't think that I made it. So that's good. That's good enough for me.
Yeah, I'll take that. Um, there's a guy named Carson Henry. He's an assistant at University of Mary, but he just did this talk at the coaching convention where he
Yeah. I
talked
met
about
him.
like,
He's
yeah,
awesome. Yeah. He's
dude,
really good.
I wanted to have him on this week, but I'm like, dude, I'm way like swamped with everything, and then I'm out of town next week. So I told him like, dude, I'm sorry, but like I gotta get you on because yeah, I know Aho, so the head coach at Mary, he recruited me out of high school.
Uh,
And dude, I just want to have him on just to pick his brain, you
Dude,
know?
it's so valuable right now. Like, I don't know what they're paying those kinds of people, but like, if you know how to use it in a really productive way, you are so valuable to whatever company or, you know, school you're at.
Yeah, I mean that's how you market yourself. It's
Yeah,
like
right.
YouTube,
Exactly.
TikTok, the Reels on Instagram, and I don't know, Facebook. Are they called Reels too?
I don't know. I'll be honest. I'm
You
horrible
know
with
what
it.
I'm talking about,
Yeah, I
though.
know what you're talking about. If I was not a coach, I would not have anything. I'll be just so sick of all social media. But yeah, it's
Yeah,
and honestly, we suck at it. And it's, when I reflected on the season, like what we could do better is like, so Clarion, we're like an old school, and we used to have like crappy facilities, but like everything's new now. But people don't think that yet. They like still see it. They view Clarion as like this subpar school that like, is not very nice. And it's not true. So like, some kids don't even check out campus because they just assume that, hey, that place sucks. But every single time we get a kid there, every single recruit we have on campus says, holy cow, I didn't expect it to be this nice. And it's
yeah,
like, people shouldn't be saying that if we're doing our job online. And that's where, we sat down, we're like, we need to attack it. And it's just, I got so many other things going on that like, we're going to have to hire somebody or figure something out to where, you know, we have to make it a priority. And that's why if you had a guy on staff that could do what was his name again?
Carson Henry.
What he does,
Yeah.
he's so valuable, man. And, you know, way more valuable than I think he realizes.
Well, so this is one of my ideas. I'm posting it, so you can't steal it. You gotta promise not to steal it. And
I
if you're
promise, big
watching, no one
promise.
can steal it. But what I like for me, like what really got me into wrestling is I watched ESPN the season when they covered Iowa, like the whole season.
Yeah,
Like that for me like was awesome. And then like all of like the programs that like the Flow would do, like the
yeah, I love
program they follow Iowa just for a few days, or they
it. Yeah,
follow Ohio State, or they follow whoever. Dude,
yeah,
I want to do that. Like, I'm gonna try to figure out next summer. It's like I just want to line up like these different colleges, and I need to be good at Adobe before I do that.
yeah.
But I can very easily just get a camera, and I
Oh
kind of have a
yeah,
process to it already.
right,
But I just feel like, dude, it would be fun. And you think about again, like what like my goal is with this
right. That's what
podcast
I
is
was just thinking.
I just want people to have access to stuff where they
Mhm.
can learn from,
Oh
and
my,
make it accessible.
yeah,
So yeah, maybe we talk about it down the line, but I got that summer schedule with the teaching, so I'm pretty free. But
yeah. That's
let me
good.
let me make a couple of videos first, and then I'll come back, and maybe
Yeah.
I'll come out and I can try to film and make it something cool. But
No, dude, that's awesome. That's great because like, every kid you work with that has access to that, and if you make it free, that's even better. Every kid has access to it. Like, they're just going to believe that like, hey, I can't do it here because I'm doing exactly what Penn State, what Iowa, I'm doing what their guys are doing. And, no matter what program you decide to emulate and what that kid, what video that guy likes the most, no matter what, you will be becoming a really great person because you're just making all these sacrifices, living a really, disciplined life.
yeah, was there anybody like when you were younger that you would like watch and like try to emulate or act like?
Well, so I was always very like hometown kid, and growing up, I had my high school coach was Keith, the head coach at Clarion. He was
Mhm.
actually an assistant to a guy named Dave Klepfer, and he was like always kind of my hero. He was like a role model. He wrestled in college, but he wasn't like a killer by any means. He where he really resonated with me was like it was all about being a good person, and when I had success, he'd say, good things happen to good people. And, he just did a really great job of like kind of holding my hand. And when I needed someone to be honest with me, he was that too. He's like, well, you want to do this, then you need to come in and start doing this. And, what I loved even more about him is, he had a family too. And
Yeah.
now that when I look back on it, how hard it must have been for him, dude, he'd say, all right, get in the car. We're going to go get some losses for you. And he'd spend all day with me saying, go get an exhibition with this state champ. I was in like ninth grade, and he's like, well, you need to wrestle these guys. And I remember he's like, go ask Nico Magalutis for an exhibition. He was a
Yeah.
senior, not a freshman. I was like, oh, coach, do I have to? I've already lost 5 times today. He's like, go do it. Luckily, Nico is leaving, but he just was like who I wanted to be like. And he had totally shown me that like if I could have the character that he had and the discipline that he had, I would become a great wrestler. I would figure out all the problems I needed to figure out.
Yeah. So one thing, so you're kind of just talking about, you go to a tournament and you lose 5 times, right?
Yeah.
For me, I'm kind of back and forth, and I get back and forth with one of my buddies that I coach with. It's like we want to make sure the guys get like the right amount of matches and the right kind of matches. So if we go to this big, like how do we kind of determine who goes to which like big tournament? Like, all right, if you're going to go to Doc B and go, 1 and 2 or like maybe 2 and 2, like, is it worth for you to go to that tournament, or should we send you to like another tournament where you're going to get, 5+ matches and get some wins under your belt, and like trying to figure out like what's the ideal thing for that guy? Cause I don't know. Like, I mean, for me, if I went 1 and 2 or 0 and 2 at like a tournament, like especially a big one, I learned a lot,
Yeah.
and I learned a lot about myself, and I got information, and I was gonna able to like figure it
Yeah,
out. And then
absolutely.
plus,
That's
you
how it
go to
works.
you go to that tournament the next year. It's like, all right, I already know what to expect. But there are kids who like,
Mhm.
this is what I think some of our younger guys struggled with. Our divisional tournament is like so tough because it's like I don't know how familiar you are with California wrestling. It's like if you can in
Vaguely,
high
loosely.
school,
Yeah, yeah,
Buchanan, yeah. So it's like them. It's Clovis High School. It's Bakersfield High School.
yeah.
There's a couple others I'm missing. So it's like all of us are like in one.
Wow,
It's
yeah.
12 teams in one division, and like the top 10 move on. So it's like we have guys that lost 2 or 3 times and still moved on, but they've never lost 2 or 3 times the whole year.
Yeah.
So it's like it was a rough tournament, and I think it kind of hurt their confidence a little
Oh,
bit
yeah.
not to have
No,
experienced that before. So
yeah.
I'm always trying to figure out like what's the best thing for guys in that sense.
Yeah, and I think it's really hard for a coach because like everyone's different. Like he knew what I could handle. And I think like the flow state thing, I don't know how much you've looked into that. I think it's like a real thing. But like I can go lose 10 times in a row. I freaking love wrestling. I love to solve the problems. I love to get better. I love to learn. And he knew that. And that's why he's like, hey, he wasn't doing that with everyone on the team, but he knew that I would be receptive and I could handle it. But like there's kids out there that can't lose, twice or else the wheels come off. And I
Yeah.
think that's the best thing you can do. And is trying to like figure out what this guy's flow state is, like how much, stress can he handle before he starts the red line and then, start to pull it back. And, what I always try is to like, try to find that like a reward in something else, because it's hard. Like we have guys on our team that don't win like that Division 1 level, like at all for like 2 years. And it can
Yeah.
be really hard on them if they don't have some kind of reward. And that's why another reason why I think the project thing is like going to be useful long term is because like these guys, okay, I'm not winning matches, but guess what? I solved this project this week. My single leg, I can finish my single leg now. And if it's, something in the hand fight that's messing them up, oh, hey, we fix that. I think come year 3, 4, they start winning matches, and it creates like a really good feedback loop that's, positive and
Yeah.
something that even people that aren't winning can flow with.
I mean, that's a really good idea because you're giving them these like small victories, and then
Yeah.
they can start chaining things together, and then they have
Yeah.
confidence.
Right.
Like, I
Right.
mean, and you probably have the experience that as a little bit as a competitor, and you probably see it as a coach. Like, I think especially with younger guys when they come in, and maybe they come from a place where they're usually a pretty good wrestler in high school, and then they come into a college room where
Yeah.
it's like, dude, everybody's good, especially on top, and you go on bottom, and you're losing practices, and you've never
Uh-huh.
really like gotten beat up like in practice like that before. Once you lose your confidence, it's so hard to get it back.
Yeah, that's when it's the hardest initially, because they don't like, it's so fast. They go from being the best there is around them to like not very good, and it's extremely hard on them. And you don't have that time as a coach yet to like show them like, hey, there's different ways to view this, that like you're still winning. You're winning in some way. And some kids you can't do anything about it, but the ones you can keep and teach them how, those are the ones usually that you go the most far with. Like they just make a lot of improvements because they'll start buying into a system that leads to success, where like before, a lot of people don't love wrestling, they love winning. And that's the guy that this usually happens to. So if you can teach them to love wrestling, then that's how you fix the problem.
Yeah, and that's sometimes easier said than done.
Yeah, much harder. But
All right, dude, we've been going for about an hour.
wow.
I kind of just
Yeah.
want, yeah, dude. I feel like changing the way that I've done the podcast now, where it's
It's
like,
great.
dude,
It
we could
was
talk all
fast.
day. Yeah,
Yeah, this was a pleasure. I do a lot of podcasts and stuff, but this one was like, man, I just felt like we just started talking and it's been an hour. That's great.
Cool, man. Dude, you're always welcome. Like anytime, like something big happens coming up with Clarion, you want to talk about it, just let me know, and
Yeah,
dude,
it's
we'll have
great.
you on again. Yeah,
Yeah, that's great. And if I ever get in Cali, I'm going to track you down, man. This has been a real
dude,
fun hour.
you got to come to the California State Tournament if you ever want
Yeah.
to recruit some California guys, because Frontier is in Bakersfield, so
Oh, perfect.
that's where the state tournament is.
Yeah. We were talking about getting a duel out there at some point. We got to be a little technical with our budgets depending on where we go and don't go. But we weren't going to Vegas this year. So we were thinking about maybe trying to head out there because like it's nice to get, some pack 12 guys and the schools out there you don't get to see. So I'm sure at some point we'll head out there too.
Yeah,
I like the Cali tournament.
you could line up like Cal Poly, Cal Baptist,
Yeah, right. Get a
CCB,
couple of them.
whoever. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's all like within 2 hours of each other.
No way. I didn't realize they were that close too. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's what we need to do. Oh, sweet. I'll make it happen.
All right, man. Well, hey, I'll check in with you down the line, just see how you're doing, and then yeah,
I
like I said,
appreciate it.
if you ever want to come back on, I'm always down. So, all
Yeah, thanks, Brian. This has been awesome. Pleasure meeting
right,
you.
Brock. All right, man. Appreciate it.
Peace.
Later.